There have been 2 world wars in my lifetime. We didn't start them, and indeed did everything we could to avoid being drawn into them. But we were ill prepared for both.
The high mark of President Reagan, we were spending 6% of our GDP on defense. At the low mark of Jimmy Carter's presidency, we were spending 4.5% of GDP, and today it's about 3%. Do you think that number will go up?
I think that number is going up. I don't want to get in front of the president and his desire to properly shape what the budget should look like. But just reading the tea leaves, just watching it, he understands the threat better than anybody I've ever seen articulate and understand the threat. And that includes investment, and I believe it'll be going up.
It hasn't happened yet, but here's hoping, not least because during Pete Hegseth's 35-minute keynote speech at the Reagan National Defense Forum, which preceded his sit-down interview, he likened President Trump's approach to that of the Gipper.
If you look at actual policies, Donald Trump is the true and rightful heir of Ronald Reagan.
And yet, just a day or two before the Defense Secretary's speech came the release of the administration's 33-page national security strategy, which, while not entirely isolationist, reads more like a declaration that America can no longer afford to, and shouldn't in the national interest, bear the burden of global leadership. So it's not the same as Ronald Reagan's approach. The document is the best insight so far into, priority-wise, how the next 3 years might go, and maybe even the next 7, since it bears the imprint of Vice President J.D. Vance.
First, defending the U.S. homeland and our hemisphere. Second, deterring China through strength, not confrontation. Third, increased burden sharing for U.S. allies and partners. And fourth, supercharging the U.S. defense industrial base.
Most notably, the strategy puts the Western Hemisphere first, playing down the rest of the world.
This is the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. After years of neglect, the United States will restore U.S. military dominance in the Western Hemisphere. We will use it to protect our homeland and access to key terrain throughout the region.
But while there is a geographic logic to this, strategically it's a bit of a thinker, since the largest threats to US security aren't Brazil, Colombia, or even Cuba. And while the document does highlight the importance of removing malign interests from the hemisphere, no mention of Russia or China in that context.
We will also deny adversaries' ability to position forces or other threatening capabilities in our hemisphere.
By any measure, the largest threat to the US is China, which over the past 5 years has tripled its nuclear arsenal and increased defense spending by at least 7%.
Increased the budget by 7.2%. Oh, by the way, that's what they advertise. Their budget process is not very transparent. My assessment is it's larger than that.
Speaking in his final appearance before the House Armed Services Committee in 2024, the then commander of US Indo-Pacific Command said China was expanding its military on a scale, quote, not seen since World War II.
I'm talking about all capabilities in their joint force. So shipbuilding, airplanes, missile systems, satellites, across the board. There is no other adversary with the capability, capacity, means, and intent to displace the United States.
A year and a half later, and the National Security Strategy describes economics, the ultimate stakes in the Pacific, and treats trade imbalances as a bigger threat to US prosperity than Beijing's military strength.
This line of effort is based on flexible realism, not naivete. An approach aimed not at domination, but rather at a balance of power. A balance of power that will enable all of us, all countries, to enjoy a decent peace in an Indo-Pacific where trade flows openly and fairly, where we can all prosper and all interests are respected.
Mr. Hegseth did acknowledge what was happening in China.
Our department maintains a clear-eyed appreciation of how rapid, formidable, and holistic the military buildup has been.
And the strategy paper does deserve credit for reiterating the US interest in peace in the Taiwan Strait, promising to build a military capable of denying aggression anywhere in the First Island chain, albeit without committing to the increased defense spending that this requires.
That's why we will ensure our military can, if God forbid necessary, project sustained capabilities along the First Island chain and throughout the Indo-Pacific. That means being so strong that aggression is not even considered.
Where the wheels of the strategy fall off is with its talk of the US and Europe re-establishing strategic stability with Russia, the power that invaded Ukraine in 2022, enabled by the ever closer cooperation between China and North Korea. with the new commander of US Indo-Pacific Command confirming just 6 months ago that each country now compensates for the other's weaknesses.
China has provided 70% of the machine tools and 90% of the semiconductors that support Russia's rebuilding its war machine. North Korea provides thousands of rounds in support and troops. And coming back to China and to North Korea are key capabilities where they would otherwise be behind that would help close the gap. Submarine technology, missile technology, and surface-to-air missiles, and so forth.
Meanwhile, the document criticizes America's friends across the Atlantic. The administration is right about Europe's decline in self-confidence and decades of neglecting hard power. But the administration lectures Europe on free speech while saying we should ignore how the world's dictatorships govern themselves.
We in Europe must become much more independent from the US in terms of security policy. This is the new strategy of the Americans.
As we rightly prioritize our homeland, hemisphere, and the Indo-Pacific, threats persist in other regions, and our allies need to step up.
Mr. Hegseth said the Trump administration would no longer tolerate free riding and pointed to the commitments made by NATO members at The Hague in June.
There, NATO committed to spend 5% of GDP on defense, 3.5% on core military, and 1.5% on security-related investments, and pledged to take primary responsibility for Europe's conventional defense.
The Reagan strategy of peace through strength was achieved through defense spending that was roughly 2 times what's being spent today. So when will the Trump administration supercharge the US industrial base, as Mr. Hegseth put it?
We need a revived defense industrial base. We need those capabilities. We need them yesterday. And so resource-wise, I think this room will be encouraged by what we'll see soon, but I don't want to get too ahead of it.